Alright guys, it's been 2 days since the last one and we should be good to mix our alcohol with our oil blend now. Yes, I got a haircut. Nobody lose their mind. I expect plenty of comments to be saying that I'm chopped. I did want to mention something first because I picked this up over the weekend. I got this body wash from Cremo and it's bergamot, patchouli, and geranium. And it's such an amazing scent. I just had to point it out because like this is one of the best scents I've ever smelled. I just showered and it smells so good, bro. I cannot get enough of this, all right? Bergamot black, I would recommend if you want like a nice earthy, very dirty, but in a good way, like a very natural scent, very manly scent, would recommend this Cremo Bergamot Black. It's definitely their best, or at least in my opinion, is their best flavor or scent, whatever you want to call it. If it were edible, I would be drinking this, okay? I'm gonna be honest. The reason I pointed it out is because I definitely am gonna consider when I'm buying my oils, which will be my next video, I'm definitely gonna consider this because I wanna recreate this in a perfume. If I can, that would be peak, bro. That would be beautiful. A little bubble just flew out. But yeah, our oil has been sitting in here and I have not smelled it yet for the past 2 days. So we're gonna smell it with that lemongrass and the added rose and sandalwood. We'll see if that clove is any less strong. I approve, bro. I think it actually mixed really well. I mean, I'm not the proudest of this scent. Like, it's not an amazing scent. It's my first tester. I just kind of mixed everything that I had. It wasn't like planned out ahead of time. Like, okay, these all go good together. I just mixed everything I had that I had bought. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that if you're starting on, you want to actually make something good. But I was really doing this just for the learning experience because you only really learn stuff when you do it, right? I could watch 20 hours of learning about perfumery and just still not know how to do anything, okay? You only really learn and have that permanent knowledge when you actually do it. And so I think I learned a lot from this experience. And one thing I don't like about this is really it just smells like essential oils, right? Like it still smells like an essential oil blend, which is what it is, right? But I feel like perfumes do a good job of really separating that scent so it's not like an essential oily smelling kind of scent, right? And I think the clove did a lot to contribute to that. Like I feel like the rose and the sandalwood and the grapefruit, like those don't actually smell like essential oils just on their own. They just smell like the scent, right? But clove very much is an essential oil-y scent. Like when you smell that, you're like, oh, that's an essential oil. And so that's the only thing I don't like about this. Is it's like you smell it and it just reminds you of essential oils, right? And I want it to remind you of my fragrance, right? And so I'm probably never going to sell this, right? Maybe an adjustment of this, I might. I'm definitely going to be more particular about what I'm picking in the next episode when I'm going to be buying some more essential oils, buying some more just fragrance stuff. And I'm probably going to be buying those from Perfumer's Apprentice, which is a nice website that just has a bunch of different perfumer like oils and scents and stuff. You can just kind of look up whatever you want, and usually they just have everything on there. So like a vanilla is something I definitely want. I might get some vanilla, and then definitely some more Christmassy stuff like some pine or some definitely a cedar wood. I don't have a good cedar, so that's a very big one. Definitely a patchouli is something I need. Actually, I have a list of stuff here. Geranium, I mean, like I was saying, I want to recreate this, so bergamot, patchouli, geranium, those would be good to have anyway. They just smell great on their own, and they can be mixed in a ton of different ways, so definitely going to consider those. Maybe an oak moss, maybe some juniper stuff, some peppermint maybe. We'll get there in the next episode, but just looking forward towards that. I'm very excited for it. But overall, I do really love how this turned out. It's way better than it was before adding all that stuff to it, so we're going to finalize this today, and we're going to add some alcohol. And then I also got a little Mr. Sprayer thing here, which I just found. I don't know why we had this. It says Ting on it, but it's actually pretty cool. You just kind of pump this thing up, and then it'll spray. Oh, there's still water. Okay, well, that just sprayed everywhere and got my paper wet. But I'll put some of my oil in there, and hopefully it'll work properly as like kind of a fragrance kind of thing. All right, so we're actually going to be doing most of our mixing in this little beaker thing. And so what we're going to do for that is we're just going to fill the alcohol to this little 5 milliliter line, just as a nice basis to start at so we can visually see it. And then I did all the math on a paper. It's definitely a little more confusing than the previous math that we've done, which is just kind of like, oh, drops and ratios and stuff. This is definitely a little more confusing because we're adding, and then we want to know the percentage of what we add. And so we kind of have to use algebra for this. I'll give you guys a short little rundown. You can skip this if you want, if you hate math and you're repulsed by it. It's really pretty simple when you actually understand it. So the amount of oil that we want to add is X, and then we're starting with 5 milliliters, right? So it would be X, which is how much we want to add, equals 10% of 5 plus how much we want to add, right? So this is the amount of oil that we're going to add. Then this is just expanded, so it's 10% of X, 10% of 5, and then we get 0.5, which is 10% of 5, and then 10% of X. And so we're going to get X's on the same side, and then basically just subtract that. We get 0.9 X, because this was 1X, equals 0.5. And then we just carry that over, divide this. So 0.5 divided by 0.9. And then this is how much we're going to add, is going to be 0.5. Kind of repeating. We're going to have to get around there in our oil that we're adding, which we'll just use the scale for. It shouldn't be too hard, but the math was a little bit confusing. You know, algebra, I mean, I've been through all of high school, but I forgot all of this. So, you know, apparently we're putting it into use. So my math teacher would be very proud. But yeah, all in all, it's pretty straightforward. So let's just get to mixing. I'm going to do my best to fill to this 5 milliliter line. I really don't know if that's going to work out well, but we'll just see how it goes. That works so much better than I was expecting. It's like a tiny little stream. I was not expecting that to work that well. All right, guys, so we're sitting at just about 5 milliliters of our alcohol. The only thing concerning about this is my beaker is like too big to fit on this tiny scale. So it's kind of just wobbling around, but hopefully it doesn't fall over and spill everywhere. All right, so I turned my scale on. It looks like it's just under 25. So we're gonna tare that. And then we will just add with our little pipettes, 0.5 of this. This is so enjoyable, guys. You don't even understand until you do it. And like I was saying earlier, like you really only learn by doing it. Like you can watch so many videos and learn so much vocabulary, but really if you want to like actually get the practice and have a permanent knowledge of it, just go ahead and do it, bro. It's so fun. Like this is just such an enjoyable thing to pass the time, you know? My mixture right there. Man, that smells good, bro. Actually, I'll add a tiny bit more. That was more than a tiny bit more. When that mixture is actually out of the bottle and on my hands, you can really smell the grapefruit. Like you could not smell the grapefruit at all, but you can really smell like that citrusy top note. It smells really good, bro. Yeah, so we're at like just under 0.7, which is, I mean, a little bit more, but we were planning on doing a parfum, which is actually 20%, so it would have been double this. It would have been like 1, so it really doesn't matter if you go a little bit over. Your scent's just gonna be stronger. But something I found really cool about this is look at how it just didn't mix. Like that just looks so cool with like the oils in there. And so this is supposed to actually dissolve in the alcohol, which is why you leave it in a dark spot for, you know, a few days. So I'm gonna actually have to put this into a bottle, which I should have considered from the beginning because I have to put this in the dark for it to dissolve. However, I'm gonna actually test my mixer thing since we got it. All right, so this giant mixer has just been sitting on my desk, but I haven't actually used it for its purpose yet, other than when I tested it. So I'm gonna crack out our little magnetic pill thing. We're just gonna drop that into our mixture. Now, obviously to mature and everything and like for it to really dissolve, it's gonna have to sit over time. I'm really curious if this will actually, you know, mix it some. So let's see, bro. It just looks like orange juice, dude. Look, you're making me thirsty. Wow. Dude, that is so cool. It actually smells like orange juice too. That's kind of weird. Oh, that is not orange juice. This thing's so fun. All right, guys, pardon me for just being entertained by this, but I mean, this thing is just, it's so beautiful. But yeah, this really, it smells like kind of orange juice-ish. And it's very strange. It actually smells edible. And I really doubt that it is, but it's a very interesting scent now. Where's those tweezers? And if you guys didn't see my tester video, when I tested out my equipment and stuff, what we're gonna do is use these tweezers. And since this little pill thing is magnetic, we can just take it out like that. Works fabulously. All right, so we're gonna try our best and pour this into a bottle. without spilling stuff everywhere, so that we can let it sit in the dark and mature. That actually worked really well. W for the beaker. Actually, really good beaker. I approve. The only really equipment that I would have changed is probably my scale, just because it's a little too small for my beaker. And it's not super accurate, but I mean, it serves its purpose. Everything that I bought really has worked great, so I don't have any room to complain here. I feel very accomplished right now. We just got our first dilution made. And our first, like, that's a whole fragrance made, bro. Right there. The one thing I am curious about, because this alcohol is 75%, and everywhere said like, oh, you know, you need 95%, but then there were some other places that were like, oh, you can use 75%. So I really wanted 95%, right? I did not want to get 75%, but the reason I got 75% is because 95% isn't sold here, right? In my state, you can't get it. So I would have had to buy online denatured alcohol, which I will probably do in the future. Maybe even when I buy my oils in the next video, I might get some denatured alcohol, because like Perfumer's alcohol that's just made for Perfumery, like 100% or close to 100%, right? I don't think 100% is actually physically possible, but you know, 95% would work a lot better. It dissolves it way better, and it has less odor also, right? So this alcohol really smells like nothing. Like, genuinely just smells like absolutely nothing, but still 95% would be even less. So hopefully I'll get some of that in the future. It's very expensive. It's like $120 for like a bottle of it or something, but it's probably worth it, I'm sure. And I don't really care about putting a label on this one, just because I'm gonna be putting it in to this sprayer thing to like see if it, you know, sprays as a good fragrance and actually works properly and doesn't give me a rash or anything like that. Because if it does, then we're gonna have to make those changes and kind of see, you know, okay, where did we go wrong? Why is it a skin irritant? You know, does this alcohol suck? Does it still smell strong? How long does it last? So basically we can just gauge those kind of things once we have a way to apply it, right? And we could put those little essential oil dropper cap things back in the bottle and just like put it on my wrist, but that's so much more boring. And I feel like if this mister thing actually works, that'd be sick, you know. But for now, we're gonna be putting this in a dark spot for another, you know, day or two, maybe a whole week probably, because I'm working this week. So I'm gonna put this back in the box and let it kind of dissolve in that alcohol, and we'll see how the smell turns out.